Ooh, inventor tips, tricks, and tutorials. Is it a tip, is it a trick, or is it a tutorial? I don't know. Just say all three and it covers all bases. Do you know what I mean? We're looking at content center editing, basic level, beginner level. If you're that guy that needs to know the intricacies and go balls deep into parameter mapping and making it sing, do tap dances and cook your dinner for you, it's not going to be that. This is beginner's stuff. Setting expectations from the start. And what is content center editing? Well, the content center is about placing these things here, like bolts and washers and nuts and fasteners. But everything, by default, off the standard libraries is read-only. You can't change it. You can't add your own stuff to it. You can't put your own part numbers in. So what you need to do is then make your own library and then copy stuff from the standard stuff into your own library and then change it. And it's a bit fiddly, so I figured we'll do a very quick beginner's guide, quick being the optimum word here because of internet and its attention span. So we need to do a bit of prep first, and I'm hoping that all of this prep work is stuff which you kind of need, you kind of already know, because each one of the bits of prep work is a topic in its own right. It's like, where do you stop? I don't know. But we're going to look at our projects first. So we're going to create a new project, and the new project is going to go on my C drive. Now, this is assuming that you're a guy working on your own with a laptop in a shed or in your bedroom doing university work or college work if you're from America. Or it's not really meant for people that are using Vault or if you're working in a drawing office. But hopefully you kind of understand that bit. Maybe. But we're going to make a new folder. This is where we're going to save all of our project work. So we're going to call this like my project, something like that. That's my project folder. And then that's where I'm going to save all the stuff. So we're going to create a new project in Inventor. And we're going to make it a single user project. I'm going to call it my project. And then for the project workspace folder, we're going to browse to my C drive and then stick the project in there and then finish. Right, once that's done, if you go to folder options, you've got content center files. Now, I said this in my installation video for installing the content center. The content center itself is just a bunch of libraries, right? It's just a bunch of numbers. When you make a bolt, it then models an IPT for you and then sticks it in a folder out of the content center. But that's why it's called content center files. And by default, it sticks them in your My Documents folder, which is that folder there, which is fine. That's where everything's going to go for all your projects. But you can have a unique content center files folder per project if you want, just by clicking in there and then, for example, putting ./content center ER for America files. And then that is a relative path. It's relative. Just save and then yes on that. That's relative to your location for your project. So if you go back over to here and then in my project, content center files. That's where all the nuts and bolts are going to go. That's most of the prep work done. We've got the project file set up. That's where the nuts and bolts are going to be stored. We now need to make our library file. So, just to make sure that everything's tickety-boo and that everything's working, go to I at the top, then Options, go to the Content Center tab, and you should have desktop content. This video is gauged to desktop content, not for Vault Server. We're not doing Vault Server stuff here, not today. Just copy that to the clipboard, that path, go to Windows Explorer, paste it into there, press return, and you should see a bunch of IDCL files. If you don't, check out my historical videos and then look at the installing the content center video and then do it, because you need these. So these ones here, everything's starting with AI 2016. This is all read-only stuff. This is the stuff we can't change. We need to make our own library. How do we do it? Right. I'm going to come back and close this, go to projects again, and then this button here, click that, and then you should see Inventor Desktop Content at the top. Location of the libraries here. Don't worry about the red ones. The red ones, you can just untick those. They're the libraries that you can use, but they're not installed, like mold stuff, which we're not interested in. So we don't need to care about those. And we're going to click this button here, which is create a library. And then I'm going to call the library. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it my library. You can call it Jim's library, Ted's library. I'm going to call it GFI library. And then OK on that. And that creates us a read-write library. Note the other ones are read-only. This is read-write, because we're going to write into it. That's what we're going to do. We're going to OK on that. And then we're going to done on that. And then yes, I'm going to say yes to that. And then when you go back over to that folder where all the libraries are, you should see your library in there looking rather small and lonely because it's empty. And that's good. It should be empty because there's nought in it. Right, that's the prep work done. We're ready to now do some editing. So the whole point of editing is you take a thing, a bolt, a washer, or whatever from any one of these libraries, you copy it into here where you can edit it. The nature of the edits depends on what it is you want to do. You might want to make a new size. You might have M10 by 100 bolt, but you might want an M10 by 120. Or you might want to put your own part numbers into the bolts that are already there. There's loads of different reasons why you could want to be editing something. I cannot cover them all, but you'll know yourself what you want to do. And hopefully this is the guide that you need to be able to do it. Okay, so we need to start editing the Content Center. How do we do that? Well, when Inventor's idle and there's naught going on, if you click the Tools tab here, Content Center Editor. If you've got something open, normally in Assembly, go to the Manage tab, Editor. That's where it is. So we're going to click that, and then you're presented with this huge, scary looking dialog box, which most people will have went, fuck that. Fuck that. What the hell am I looking at here? Yeah, I get that. But it's kind of, it's kind of makes sense when you break it all down. On the left hand side, this is the category view, so these are all the different nuts and bolts and different, everything in the Content Center is split up into categories. So you've got like hex head bolts, you've got set screws, you've got washers, plain washers, blah 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 blah. So everything's categorized. Now the reason there's so many of them is because our project file currently uses all of these libraries. So each one of these libraries has their own plain washers. There's washers in this one, there's washers in this one, blah, 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 blah. And by default, you're looking at all of the washers in all of those libraries in one view. Now, if you don't give a monkeys about like ANSI stuff or Japanese stuff and German stuff, you might just want to look at ISO stuff. So in the library view drop down here, you can go, and then you can go to ISO stuff, and it just shows you the washers that are in the ISO library. And then that sticks, and then you can go to hex head bolts, and I'm just looking at ISO stuff. It's a lot more manageable than looking at everything combined, which is what that is when you're looking at merged view. It's all the libraries merged together, but we're not caring about that. We just want to look at ISO stuff. Right, so that's what everything is. On the left-hand side, categories, right-hand side's all the bolts and stuff. If you have this preview pane switched on down here, which I believe is family preview, that one there, the family preview is when you click a bolt or a washer or anything, this just shows you what it's made up of. So for that bolt, each one of these rows is a potential IPT. And there's hundreds of them. In some cases, there's thousands of them per each one of these different standards. But each one of these rows defines a dimension, different diameter, a different length, a different thread size, for that particular bolt. So it's a potential IPT per row. That's the family table. Can you imagine how much work it was making all this, man? Right, so we need to make our own. Now, if you go to the library view and then you select TFI library or whatever library you've got, it's empty. That's good. It should be empty. So we're going to go back over to the ISO library, and we're at the point now where we can create our own. Now, there's a number of different ways you can do this. Now, I'm going to make a copy of this one here, ISO 4762. It's a socket head cap screw. I want to add a new size into it and change a couple of part numbers and stuff. How do I do that? It's easy. Like I said, there's a number of different ways of doing it, and people will probably gauge to argue with me, no, there's a better way of doing it, and I'm doing it a different way. You might do it a different way, but this is the way I'm showing you. If you've got a better way of doing it, do your own video! What you do is right click on it, and then you go to Save Copy As. Now when you select Save Copy As, it's going to create a copy of that entire bolt, all of its different rows and stuff, and it's going to save it into your library. It's an independent family, which means there's no link back to the original. If you want a link back to the original, you can keep a link back to the original. That's up to you. But I like preferably. I like having an independent family. So it's completely separate. Family name, well, that's up to you. Depends what you're copying, depends what you want to call it. You can put your company name in here. TFI ISO 4762. Family description, that's the descript. By the way, this is the description that will end up in your IPT, which will end up in your parts list, which will end up in your bombs, which will end up on your drawings. So you can put your own description in here if you want to change it a little bit. You can do that. And then go to review, click review. And in here, what we're going to do is we're going to select this cell here. And then for the expression, this is the expression that makes up the actual file name of the bolts once you've placed them. and you don't want the words copy of in your file name. So we're going to put TFI in there. We're going to click this one here, and then we're going to select this, and then we're going to go TFI, and then we're going to select out of it. And these 3 rows here are a preview of what will happen when you make a bolt from your new library part. It's going to be, the file name is going to be TFI ISO 4762. So you can change this if you want. If you don't want the standard name in the file name, you can delete out expressions and you can have just TFI-M 1.6 by 2.5. You might not even want ISO at the end of it. You can get shot of that if you want. Just remove it. It's up to you, entirely up to you what you're doing here. But you can change the expressions to suit. And this here, these 3 rows are a preview of what your edits to this top cell will do to the final result. Click OK. Click OK. It then boosh, copies that, boof, puts it into the TFI library. Then we can drop this down. We can go to TFI library. There it is. So we've now got our own category: fasteners, bolts, socket head, screws. And there's our TFI bolt ready to be edited. Right. Some edits we can do from here. If you right click on it and go to the family properties, you can make tiny adjustments to the family name, which is what appears there, to the description. Don't forget that's what appears in your part, in the actual iProperty description. So you can just call this, if you don't want hexagon socket head cap screw in there, you can just have hexagon head cap screw, whatever. You can put whatever you want in there. Click OK. And then for the family table, right, this is where we start to make edits to the actual files, right, to the actual bolt itself. We've got to go into the family table. This here is just a preview, by the way. You can't actually edit it from here. Right click, family table, and it brings up another scary looking Excel type row and column grid setup. So all the rows, these are all the rows that make up the bolts. So for example, if we scroll down, we can find M10. So that one there is an M10 by 16 socket head cap screw. This one here is an M10 by 100 socket head cap screw. The rest of the numbers, you can see the column headers. So that number there is the thread length. That there is the head height. You don't necessarily need to change any of these unless you're making a dramatically different sized bolt and you need to change some of these to suit. So to make your own row, so say for example we want an M10 by 120. That doesn't exist. It goes to M10 by 100, and then the next size is an M12 by 20. So we want an M10 by 120. What you do is right click on that and then copy that. Right click again, add a row, right click again, paste. Come to the cell that defines the differential, which is going to be the length. We want M10 by 120. Take that out, put in 120. Because the rest of the row, most of the rest of the row is parameter driven, if you scroll along to the right, you can see it's updated things like the designation. It should update the part number automatically as well, which is, and the file name. So if we just expand that column a bit, the file name will be TFI ISO 4762 M10 by 120. And part number should be the same, M10 by 120. So the rest of the columns should update depending on your nominal length, because it's kind of a key column. It's one of the driving factors, one of the biggest differentials between all the different rows. So that should update to suit. If you're making something hugely different, like M10 by 200, things like the thread length, the thread diameter should stay the same because it's an M10, but you might need to change some of the other properties to suit. The best thing to do, and you'll be able to figure this out for yourself, but if you were to do M10 by 200, is to scroll down to another size which has got a 200, like this one here, and then look at the other thread. Like, let's see, the thread length there is 52 instead of 30 something. You might want to tinker that a little bit to suit. It depends. Once you place the bolt, the new one, M10 by 200, it might just not physically model because other dimensions might need change, but you kind of have to just do a bit of trial and error with that. But there's our M10 by 120. I think that's pretty much all you need to do. Click OK, and it should say publish to the selected library. Yes. Click OK, and now when you scroll down the preview, we should have M10 by 120. There it is. Click done, and then let's test it. So we're going to select place from Content Center. Now you should see a combined view. This is a combined view of all the different libraries. If you just want to see your stuff, you can go to, well actually you need to select your own, you need to make your own filter, wouldn't you? So you'd have to go add, and then we'll make a TFI filter, and then I didn't give it its own standard though, so that won't work, will it? No, it won't. No, it won't. Right, I probably should follow this up. That's right, let's make our own filter. Let's make our own filter that looks at just our stuff. So we're going to go back into the Content Center editor. We're going to look at the TFI library, fasteners, bolts, socket head, gap screw, and we need to get rid of the filter that I put on because it didn't work. Right click on that, go to family properties, and then for the standard we're going to say this is going to be, I'm not too sure if this is actually going to be a good idea, but we'll say standard organization is TFI. Right, and then we're going to go to add edit filters, TFI, and then whilst this filter is active, we're going to untick all of these except TFI. Tick, 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 tick. This is exciting, isn't it? Tick, apply. Okay, right, so whilst we've got our merged view active, TFI filter is enabled, which is on this one here, TFI filter enabled. We should now only see bolts or whatever which have been assigned to the TFI standard, which is what I've just done. That should work. There you go. You can change that over and put it to ISO. There you go. ISO stuff. Put that back to TFI. TFI stuff. Yay! Right. Okay. I'm glad that worked. Right. Back on point. We're ready to place it. We're ready to see if our new size works. So we're going to double click this. This is our new bolt. Actually, no, we're not because we're still in the editor. Place from the Content Center. There it is. On the TFI filter. Double click him. And we're going to go for M10. And there's our new size, 120. Click that. Click OK. There we go. Drop him in. And there's our M10 by 120 bolt. TFI ISO 4762 M10 by 120. If we go to the properties of this part, we should see TFI hexagon head cap screw. So notice it took off the hexagon socket because I removed that from the family description. And part number is there. And yeah, that's it. Isn't it good? That's pretty much it. That's how you do it. That's how you take your own library, copy stuff into it, and edit it. A couple of other things you can do, and a couple of other things that you need to be aware of as well. If you were to just delete this, right, deleting that, go back to Content Center Editor, go to your TFI part, or the new one you've created, which is this one here, change the family properties, and then let's put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at the end of the description. Right, so now when I place this bolt, it should put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the description, whereas before it didn't. So let's shut this down. Let's go to place from the Content Center. Let's drop him in. Let's place M10 by 120, and let's press OK, and let's drop him in. Okay, let's look at the description. It hasn't put it in. I need to make you aware of this. Right, once you've placed something from the Content Center and you physically put it in your assembly, Inventor has modeled this component already from the first time I placed it. When you place it again, the same part, even if you delete it from your assembly and you place the part again from the Content Center, it will reuse the IPT on your hard disk. And that's why I made the project file to start with and then separated the Content Center files folder here. ENUS, TFI, that there. TFI ISO 120. That's the bolt that we placed a couple of minutes ago. That bolt there didn't have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 description in it. I've since added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the description in the Content Center, placed the bolt again, but it's reused the one from the hard drive which didn't have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the description. So, just FYI, that happens, and it can be confusing until you realize what it's doing. Once you realize what it's doing, you go to manage, and then you need to save your assembly first, so we'll just save this. Click refresh, and it'll go, that one there is out of date. Click refresh, click close, and then when you go to the properties, you should now see it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at the end of the description. and then well, if I'd placed any other size other than M10 by 120, because all the other sizes don't exist on the hard drive, they would have come down with the new description. But just this one part, because we'd already placed it without the description, I'm banging home this point, it reused it from the hard drive. So, right, another thing you can do as well, which can be useful as well, is the material guide is quite a useful one. You might have a custom content center part, but you might want to use different materials. So what you can do is you can go to the material guide, click next, add materials as new family members, and then you can say, right, well, this is going to be placed at stainless steel, which I think it uses by default that one there, but you might want to just have standard old stainless steel as well as a second option. You can click to add, click next, material alias, I've typed in SS, for just short for stainless steel, click next, and then as a differentiator use the alias, and as a suffix, and as a part number. Click next, and then click start. Right, I'm just banging through these settings because of time, because I've probably already gone on for about 15 minutes now, I suspect. Finish, and then shut this down. Right, now, when you place from the content center, and then you select your part, you're going to have the option of selecting two materials. So we can say M10 by 100, and then we can choose stainless steel instead of 440C. And then when we click apply, it's going to drop that in. And then as a differentiator, get out of here, man. If we select him, go to the properties, we should see that this has been placed with just standard old stainless steel, and the differentiator alias SS has been put in the part number. Woo, woo. Whereas this one, if we go to the properties, this is the first one we created, that's 440C, and that one doesn't have SS in the part number. So just a slight differentiator there, where you can use the material guide to specify different materials. Right, I'm going to stop there because anything else further than this is just going to require much more explanations and confusing clicks and confusing expressions and stuff. I think it's probably enough. Should be enough to get you going for editing the content center. Let me know if I lost you during that. I don't know, because I'm conscious on making these as quick as possible, but at the same time I need to cover lots of informations, which is just lots of clicks, and we're kind of dabbling in an area here which isn't that user friendly, and trying to make it user friendly is a little bit tricky, but I might have done it, I don't know. I have no idea. But let me know in the comments if it was good. Let me know by clicking like if you liked it, if it helped you out. Press dislike if you thought it was a load of bollocks, and subscribe if you haven't already. We're nearly at 2,000, man. We're nearly at 2,000. Party when 2,000 happens.